A very good morning to my dear students. Today we are going to deal with the poem which is included in the second chapter in your supplementary reader. As you all know, the poem is entitled as The Cloud and the Pebble by the famous romantic poet in English literature William Blake. So, in the beginning classes of this year itself, I have already given a short account on romantic poet, romanticism, and romantic era in literature. Anyway, we can look at those areas in detail today in this class before we are going to take this poem. Anyway, this is a beautiful poem written by William Blake. As you all know, William Blake belongs to the Romantic period in English literature. Or we can say that William Blake is a Romantic poet. Do you know some of the names of Romantic poets? Yes, as you all know, we have William Wordsworth, John Keats, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Piers Bysshe Shelley, Lord Byron, William Blake, etc. The list is not complete. There are some more. Now, tell me, why do we call them as romantic? Do you know? Yes, you yourself can find the answer. It is very simple. Now, please tell me what is more common about their poems. Have you ever thought of it? If you studied their poems, you could easily find that there is a uniformity in the theme of their poems. We can find a uniformity in the theme of every poems which are written in the Romantic era. Yes, all of them speak about the nature and the beauty of nature. In other words, we can say that all those poems are clearly speaking about the glorification of the beauty of nature. So, here we can conclude that Romantic period in literature is nothing but a movement where we can find the glorification of the beauty of nature. In every romantic poems, we can find the element of beauty. That means the element of beauty of nature. So is with this poem also. We can find in this poem also an element of beauty of nature. If you look at the title itself, you can find that the cloud and the pebble, both these things or both these objects are only found in nature. So, from the title itself, we can see that, or we can say that the poem is nothing but the glorification of the beauty of nature. Or in a way, it closely relates with nature. As you go through the poem, you can find a few old English usages like seeketh, hath, etc. Here, seeketh means seek and hath means has. Both are old forms of seek and has. So, being written in the old English period, most of the words used in and across the poem definitely or surely belongs to that period. So, the difference can be easily visible in the poem. It is more visible in the use of words like seeketh, hath, etc. So, they are only the old usages, old English form. Now we have seek and has instead of seeketh and hath. So you have to know about it before we are going to take the poem. Now look at the preface portion. So now I am going to read the preface portion. So please read along with me. A clod of clay and a pebble define love. Their definitions are totally different. Whose views would you subscribe to? So in the preface passage or in the preface portion, the writer is asking to us a particular question. It has been said that both a clod of clay and a pebble define love, and their definitions are totally different. So it has been asked to us that whose views would you subscribe to? Is it the view of the clod or is it the view of the pebble? So in the preface passage itself, the writer says that, or it has been informed to us that in this poem we can find two notions about love. So the first notion is given by a clod of clay and the second notion is given by a pebble. So their definitions are totally different. Anyway, whose views would you subscribe to? So whose views did you accept as the final view? The writer is asking to us, is it the view of the clod or is it the view of the pebble? Now we can move on to the poem to find more about the definition of love on both point of view. So let me read the poem first. Love seeketh not itself to please, nor for itself hath any care, but for another gives its ease, and builds a heaven in hell's despair. So sung a little clod of clay, trodden with the cattle's feet, but a pebble of the brook warbled out these meters meet. Love seeketh only self to please, to bind another to its delight, joys in another's loss of ease, and builds a hell in heaven's despite. As we get into the poem, we can say that the poem stages a conversation between the clod and the pebble to make a point about the love of nature. Or we can simply say that the poem is in a conversational mode. The clod is talking, the clod and the pebble is talking to us. They are expressing their own different notions about love. The poem begins with a clod of clay declaring that love is about selflessness, or love is about giving yourself to someone else. That means, it is associated with sacrificing something. So in that way, the poem goes on to say that love is a positive force which can take the hell of despair and turn it into a joyous heaven both for the lover and the loved. So this is actually the brief meaning of the poem. Now we can read the first stanza and go for the analysis of the meaning stanza by stanza. Okay, now we can read the first stanza. All of you please take your textbook, page number 25, and please go to the first stanza. Anyway, I am going to read the first stanza, so listen. Love seeketh not itself to please, nor for itself hath any care, but for another gives its ease, and builds a heaven in hell's despair. Now we can move on to discuss the first stanza. Here in this stanza, Blake says through the point of view of the cloud that love is sacrificial. So he portrays the divine nature of love. Love is something, he says, love is something which sacrifices for the other. He says that love does not care to please itself, and love never cares for itself. It does not worry over itself at all, for love itself has no care. At the same time, on the contrary, the writer, through the point of view of Claude, here states that love always pleases others. It cares others. It gives its life for others. It gives its ability for others. And finally, we can find in the first stanza, and love will build a heaven even in hell's despair. The last line in the first stanza clearly portrays the power of the sacrificial love, that it can create hope in a hopeless space. Here, heaven can be a synonym of hope and hell can be of hopelessness. So in that way, the first stanza speaks about the sacrificial or the selfless nature of love through the Claude's point of view. So here, despair means hopelessness. That means the writer wants to say the power of sacrificial love through the point of view of Claude of clay. He says that sacrificial love can be so powerful as it can turn the hell into a heaven. So hell is actually here treated as a space where there is hopelessness, and heaven, on the contrary, a space where we can find hope. So the writer says that the sacrificial love is so powerful as it can simply turn the space of hopelessness to a space of hope. That means it can simply turn a hell into heaven. So the writer conveys the fact that love is that much powerful. Sacrificial love is that much powerful. Now we can move on to the second stanza. So read with me. Okay. So sung a little cloud of clay, trodden with the cattle's feet, but a pebble of the brook warbled out these meters mate. So when the second stanza begins, the writer says that it is the point of view of the cloud of clay. What is the point of view of the cloud of clay? The things which are described in the first stanza. So sung a little cloud of clay. That means this is the opinion of the cloud. What made the cloud to come to such an opinion, or what is so special about the cloud here? You know what a cloud is. It's every time trodden with cattle's feet. So the cloud here is every time trodden with cattle's feet. What do you mean by trodden? It is crushed by being walked on. That means the cloud has every time of a story of suppression. It is every time crushed by being walked on by the cattles. Although the experience does not sound pleasant, it is still an experience. Now, Look at the last two lines in the second stanza. But a pebble of the brook warbled out these meters meet. So here what do you mean by brook? Brook is actually a small stream. A small stream. And what do you mean by warbled out? Yeah, the meaning is given there, sang. And what do you mean by meters meet? Yeah, meters meet means a suitable verse. That means, yeah, a suitable poem. So, in the last two lines of the same stanza, the definition of love takes a deviation through the point of view of pebble. The pebble of the brook sings a suitable poem like that of the clod of clay, because when the second stanza begins, we can find the first line as so sung a little clod of clay. So there is a reference to the singing of clod. That means the opinion of clod. Likewise, yeah, here in the last portion of the second stanza, again the writer says that the pebble of the brook sings a suitable poem. That means, yeah, the pebble of the brook is coming with its own notion, its own point of view about love. Now we can find what is the point of view of the pebble. So now we can move on to the last stanza. Please go to the last stanza along with me. Okay. Now I am going to read the third stanza. So please listen. Love seeketh only self to please, to bind another to its delight, joys in another loss of ease, and builds a hell in heaven's despite. Pebble here says that, or Pebble is of the view, or Pebble is of the opinion that love only seeks to please itself. It does not bind itself for others' delight. Rather, it binds another to its delight. In that way, it is selfish. That means love does not give anything, love does not offer anything, love does not sacrifice anything. So, on the contrary, it takes everything, it binds everything to its delight. It is not at all it is not at all considered about others' pleasure, others' delight, others' happiness. So in that way, love is so selfish. So this is actually the point of view of Pebble. And now please look at the last two lines in the third stanza. Joys in another's loss of ease, and builds a hell in heaven's despite. Here the writer says that love feels joy in others' loss of ability, and it builds a hell in heaven's despite. The meaning of the word despite is given in the textbook itself as hope and happiness. So the writer, the poet William Blake, concludingly speaks through the point of view of Pebble in the last line that selfish love is capable of creating hell in heaven. That means selfish love can replace hope and happiness with unhope and unhappiness. So, such is the power of selfish love. If you look at the last line in the first stanza, and if you look at the last line in the last stanza, we can find a clear-cut similarity. In the last line in the first stanza, we can find a line that and builds a heaven in hell's despair, and it is being replaced as a hell in heaven's despite in the last stanza. So here the poet, through the different point of view of cloud and pebble, says that a selfless or a sacrificial love is capable of creating heaven in hell, and at the same time a selfish love is capable of bringing hell in heaven. So such is the power of selfish love, and such is the power of selfless love. So this is all the poem about. Now, apart from the literal side, that means the literal meaning of the poem. So apart from the literal meaning of the poem, let us go for a clear analysis of the content of the poem with regard to the application of poetic devices used in and across the poem. Now let us have a detailed look at the poetic devices used by the poet in order to make his poem more elegant and more beautiful. As we get into the poem, the poet is brilliantly taking the use of two metaphors to describe the contrasting sides of love. Can you say which are the metaphors used by the poet? Yeah, we have already mentioned it in the beginning of the class. Or the poem is revolving around these two metaphors. Yeah, definitely we can, all of you know, we can say that, yeah, the metaphors used by the poet in this poem are, yeah, the metaphor of a clod of clay, which stands for selfless kind of divine love, that means loving even the enemies. Yeah, we already know that the clod of clay is trodden with the cattle's feet. So even though every time, yeah, it is being suppressed with the cattle's feet, yeah, it finds a pleasure in the sacrificial love, the love which teaches us to love even our enemies. And also the metaphor of pebble, which stands for stubborn and selfish kind of love. Again, we can find a clear contrast in the poem. Which is a clear contrast we can find here? Do you know? Yeah, the first stanza is being contrasted with the last stanza on exploring the two varying sides of love. And in a broader sense, cloud can be a metaphor for heaven and pebble can be a metaphor for hell, as the first being connected with divine love and the second being connected with self-centerism. Have you ever felt any kind of speciality over the diction used in the poem? Diction means the choice of words used by the poet to express his ideas. Yeah, we can find some kind of specialities with regard to the choice of words used in the poem. Giving in first stanza, the word giving in first stanza is closely associated with selfless selfless nature of love or sacrificial nature of love, and taking in the last stanza, that means to bind another to its delight. So taking in the or binding in the last stanza is associated with selfish nature of love. So in that way we can undoubtedly say that even the diction used by the poet in his poem remain loyal to the theme of the poem. Okay. As we closely analyze the poem in its minute details, we can find that the cloud and the pebble are examples of binary pair. What do you mean by binary pair? Or we can say that they are the mirror image of the other. What do you mean by mirror image? Yeah. The selfless image of love is reflected to the selfish image of love in the last stanza. Did you get me? So if you look at the first stanza, we can find the selfless image of the or sacrificial image of the love, and it is almost like a mirror which reflects another thing. What it is reflecting? It reflects the selfish nature of love. So in that way, giving is pairing with its binary opposite, that taking, and heaven is pairing with its binary opposite, hell, and selfish image of love is pairing with its binary opposite, the selfless image. So in that way we can say that the cloud and the pebble are treated by the poet as a binary pair or the mirror image of the other. Okay. And the second line in the second stanza, trodden with the cattle's feet, actually portrays the sacrificial image of love, because here the cloud does not complain anything against the cattles who crushed it, and this portrayal is being compared with binding others' delight in the second line in the last stanza, which portrays the selfish image of love. So here you have to be aware of one more thing, that Claude can here in this poem consider love as sacrificial because of what? Because of the fact that it can love others who suppress it. So Claude can here love even the cattles who crushed it. So in that way it can be a symbol of sacrificial love. But pebbles consider love as selfish because of what? Do you know pebble was once a rude stone? Then how a rude stone became as soft as a pebble, or as elegant as a pebble, or as beautiful as a pebble? It's only because of taking something from others, or taking something from others, most probably from the flowing of water. So it only knows the selfish side of love, because it is almost like that. The same idea is conveyed in the second line of the last stanza, that to bind another to its delight. So pebble is actually taking the only the advantage from others. So in that way, it accepts everything from others only for its own sake, only for its self. So in that way, we can find, or we can say that pebble is actually a medium or a symbol of selfish love. Okay. And structurally, the poem is divided into 3 stanzas having 4 lines each. And if we look at the poem very closely, we can find that the poem follows A B rhyming scheme. And if you look at the first stanza and the last stanza, you can find that the poem is written in AB rhyme scheme. But when you come to the second stanza, we can find that this rhyme scheme is not following there in the second stanza, simply because of the reason that in the second stanza, the poem is switching in between the 2 point of view. So just to show that transformation from one point of view to the other point of view, the poet does not follow a particular rhyme scheme there in the second stanza. And the rhyming words such as please, ease, care, despair, please, ease, delight, despite are all capable of bringing a musical quality to the entire poem. So this is all about the poem. So hope you understood everything which we discussed today in the class. Anyway, in short, we can say that this poem presents 2 entirely different notions about love through 2 different perspectives. The perspective of through the perspective of a cloud of clay and through the perspective of a pebble. So this is all about the poem. Hope you understood everything. Anyway, you have to go to the exercise portion, you have to go to the question answers, and you have to find out all the answers of the questions given in the exercise portion, because it is a very simple poem, and I have explained everything in its detailed manner. So you have to go to the exercise, you have to go to the question answers and find out the answers, and after writing you can send it to me. Okay, anyway, thank you, have a nice day.